Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Beautiful day to live in Winona County. We start our meetings as usual with a public comment period. Each speaker, if you'd step to the podium, give us your name and address, and you have 2 minutes to make us aware of your issue.
My name is Robert Bullis. I live at 31286 Secluded Road in Dresbeck, Minnesota. And I was here a year ago when one of the few sewer supporters was trying to get Winona County to take over the frontage road by the MnDOT truck facility in Dakota, or in Dresbeck. And that didn't happen. They haven't come back since, but now they're trying to put all of the Dresbeck residents at bay as far as paying for that road. I've distributed a document, a one-page letter to the commissioners, plus subsequent letters and or 2 resolutions. The 2 resolutions plainly state that the SSD would be totally responsible for the cost of that road if they take it over. They're going to be back asking you for a CUP probably in the next month. And all I'm asking is for you not to grant that CUP. You have granted them one already. Let them have the one they have at least until January, because there's an election in November, and new officers will take office by January, and let the people decide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Jeff Tash. I'm in Dresbeck also. I live at 31144 Old Mill Road. My property is located very near where this proposed sewer plant would be. They're proposing to pipe the human excrement from about 100 toilets down right across the street from my house. There's currently no protection under the county zoning ordinances for us, for our property values. Probably because this kind of thing would almost never happen, where you have a mature community that's, has its own private septic tanks, and all of a sudden they decide to flop a big poop tank in the middle of other people's homes. We are not even in the sewer project. We're not going to even be connected to this sewer. We have no benefit from it. I am asking you to amend your zoning ordinances to protect our property from this kind of thing. Currently, I understand that they could put this sewer tank 10 feet away from a property line. This big sewer tank, they're going to have to pump this thing. All the sludge is going down there from all these homes. They're going to have to pump this thing because of the size of it. At least every month, the engineers agree that that's the case. It's going to take several pumpers to pump out a 10,000-gallon tank of sludge. They tell me it won't smell. They say, oh, don't worry, it won't affect your property values and you won't smell it. Of course you will. So we really seriously need to amend the zoning ordinances to get this kind of thing a distance away from existing homes. If they come in and want to build a wastewater treatment plant after the fact, we need to get this thing away from existing homes, a minimum of 500 feet or more. I mean, think about it in your home. If in your home they did this to you, it wouldn't be right.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the 2-minute warning. It's a new system we have, so it alarmed us also.
Good morning. My name is Jay Lau. I live at 31120 Old Mill Road in Dresbeck. They pretty much covered everything that I have to say. I am the resident who will most directly be affected by this as far as location. It's directly across the street from my house. This house has been in our family for in excess of 20 years. We were there first, and now there are some self-serving residents in my town who want to plop their sewer system right across the road from my house. They're trying to tell me it's in no way going to affect my property values. It just sounds crazy to me. I can't get any help from my board at the local level, and I'm hoping you will all help me out and afford me some protection against this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board this morning? Anyone else? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to item 3, approval of the county board minutes from July 24th.
I'll move approval. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Olson to approve the meeting minutes from July 24th. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Minutes approved. Item number 4, acknowledge receipt of approved committee minutes. 4.1, Planning Commission, June 21, 2018.
Move to acknowledge.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, second by Commissioner Kavesi to acknowledge the Planning Commission, June 21. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Approved. 4.2, Board of Adjustment, June 21, 2018.
Move to acknowledge. Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Olson to approve the acknowledgement of the Board of Adjustment, June 21, 2018. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And 4.3, extension, both of December 21st, 2017 and March 13th, 2018.
Also move to acknowledge.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Jacob, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the acknowledgement of the extension December 21 and March 13th. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Consent, comments, and approval of the agenda. Anything, Mr. Fritz?
Yeah, I have to remove item 6.3 completely from the agenda.
Okay, remove 6.3.
It's the Quest Corporation easement.
All right.
And that's it.
That's it, okay. Commissioner Kavesi?
I'd like to make some comments on 6.2, and I have some announcements at the end.
Okay, so 6.2, would you like that pulled?
Just to make some comments.
Comments at the
Yeah.
time? Okay. And announcement, you said?
Yes.
All right.
please.
Commissioner Pomeroy?
I'm good.
All right. Commissioner Olson?
Good.
Commissioner Jacob?
One announcement.
Attorney Sonley?
Nothing.
Okay, and I have one announcement, please. Okay, with that, Mr. Fritz, or a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, seconded by Commissioner Jacob to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Mr. Fritz, if you'd read the consent business.
Okay, consent business, committee recommendations, 6.1, approved conditional use permit for Gerald Brogan, Michael Wolford, and Gene Johnston to allow construction of home on less than 40 acres. 6.2 is approved Winona County Tax Court settlement information.
I just had some comments. I want it on record that I disagree with these business tactics. These businesses live in our communities. Their employees drive on our city and county roads. They attended public schools, some, and if the salaries aren't commensurate with a living wage, or if they're part-time, we may be subsidizing housing, food assistance, or health care assistance. So I wish there was a better way to settle this so that businesses who live in our community could pay their fair share. Thank you.
Okay. 6.3 was pulled from the agenda. 6.4, approve evidence-based family home visiting grant and memorandum of agreement. 6.5 is accept Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act grant award. 6.6 is approved grant project agreement amendment for follow along program. 6.7 is approved interagency agreement of multidisciplinary team response to child maltreatment. 6.8 is approved relocation of funds to the Road and Bridge Capital Improvement Plan to replace 2 cattle passes on Casad 39. 6.9 is award a bid for culvert replacement in Casad 4 and 9 and County Road 102 to Icon Constructors. 6.10 is approved grant agreement with Southeast Minnesota Water Resources Board. 6.11 is approved phlebotomy service agreement. 6.12 is approved resolution for donations received 4/1/2018 through 6/30/2018. And 6.13 is a confirmed payment of disbursements. And that concludes the consent agenda.
I'd move to approve the consent agenda as presented, and also to include a thank you for the donations received.
Yes.
An official thank you be sent to those.
Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, a seconded by Commissioner Jacob to approve the consent business. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. With Commissioner Pomeroy's comment on the donations, which is page 139, we should have a policy where we send written acknowledgement, thank yous. I think we have that.
Okay.
But I would like to make sure you're right, that we do send a written thank you. Just so people know, cash donations were received in community services for transportation, the restorative justice program, and the veterans program. And in a non-cash light fixture at Farmers Park for a flagpole. So some valuable contributions to our county. Thank you. General business. 7.1, open sealed bids for the Winona County Government Center. And actually, we have, at this time, and the bid process is closed, correct?
Yeah, the
Mr.
bid
Fritz?
process closed on August 6th.
And maybe, Mr. Fritz, while I'm getting these open, you can explain the process, please?
The county published the proper notices to seek bids for the Winona County Government Center. The bid notice provided approximately, I think it was 3 weeks for submittal of the bids. We've received the bids, which the chair will open here in a second. The deadline was August 6th, as I said before. After at this point, we just open the bids, accept them, staff, the county's attorney's office, review them, and then it's intended that in a working session, closed working session, the county board will review the bid, and at such time, direction can be given to the staff as how to proceed.
Okay, so we have bids and purchase agreements and earnest checks. Is that what they're considered? And the rest of the board can see them, but they're not open to the public at this time.
No.
Okay, so if you want to keep those two on here.
Yeah, just at this point, you just indicate what's been contained in the bid.
Why is this not open to
Defer
public?
the attorney, because bid openings really need transparency, and I think anytime you open a bid, you have to announce the bid.
I agree.
I have Preston Solak here, who's been working with administration on this. Preston, do you want to come on up? Assistant County Attorney Preston Solak.
Good morning, folks. That does seem to be the intent of 37301. Not necessarily reciting everything that's in there, but just letting the public know who made the bid. And I don't think we need to know what the terms they're offering, but just where the bid came from, who the person is that's making the bid.
And the dollar amount, the bid amount?
I don't think we don't need to make that public at this point in time because that's part of offers and counter offers, which can be considered in a non-public setting under 13D05, some subdivision.
So
Maybe my question of the board is if we want to go that direction, or if we want to simply, basically announce who made the bid and the amount of the bid.
I have no objection. It's just a matter of whatever the board considers, because from my point of view, the board ultimately has to look at the terms and figure out what's best for the county, and then there's an amount of negotiation involved in any purchase agreement. So, from our perspective.
So the ability to close under that 13D05 isn't required. It's permitted. So it's within the discretion of the county board.
So I think from this point, if you want to, whatever you want to disclose is fine. Obviously, you have the right to do that. And then we would still want to meet in closed session to go over the particulars of each of the bid and what the counter offers might be or whatever.
Yeah, the details of there's a lot of details, so.
Can I just add for the record, looking at 13D 05, meetings having data classified as not public, when meetings may be closed under subdivision 3, and it is under subdivision 3C, a public body may close a meeting to determine the asking price for real or personal property to be sold by the government entity. So I believe and also to review confidential or protected non-public appraisal data, and to develop or consider offers or counteroffers for the purchase or sale of real or personal property. So it is under the may and not the shall. So you do have that discretion on.
Could I maybe ask the attorney what her opinion is with regard to what we're speaking here about? I mean, I have no problem divulging all the what information we have, those three parts, but.
I guess I'll take them.
Well,
As soon as they come down.
I think
gotta
it's within your discretion, but we would be, that you would probably want to decide, do you want a closed meeting or not at some time in the future about this, because it is a may and not a shall. I would at this time just recommend that you disclose who the entity is making the bid, if you want what the price is, but again, that kind of goes to the counteroffer issues that you might want to reserve for, negotiation purposes. So it's really up to this body as to how far you want to go in terms of the disclosure. But I think for transparency purposes, who made the bid, I guess I really don't see a problem with stating the amount, but I do agree that the details should probably remain for you to decide whether you want to open or close those at a later date based on our review and giving you our opinion as to whether you want to close or open the meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Jacob.
If we had any intention of doing anything other than opening this and letting the public see it, we should have discussed that and had a closed session. And to me, this process has gone, it's here before us. Our business is to work for the public. I don't see that we have a choice, in my view. I think it's public information because it happened at this meeting. So if there was any advice that we should have had it in a closed session, that should have happened prior to this meeting. So we can still have our closed session, decide what we're going to do in negotiations and so forth. But in my view.
Yeah, there was no intent to have a closed session today.
Today.
It was scheduled for 2 weeks from now.
If we didn't want to divulge this information today, I think it should have came through a closed session, not an open board meeting.
And I have,
Public knowledge.
yes, and I would agree. I have no problems. I'm thankful we got two bids, but we are a public entity, and it is taxpayer dollars that we're dealing with. So I would say, is everybody agreed then to read the names and the amount of the bid? Yes. And then, as you can see, the one document has 7 pages, so we're not going to discuss that today. That we will plan to go into closed session to discuss those. The other one is just a 1-page bid, so there is no documentation. So the one bid for the county office building that we're seated in is S&M Properties, 270 West 3rd Street, Winona. Offer price $161,000. The second bid is Main Square Development LLC, P.O. Box 312, Winona, Minnesota. And their bid is for $700,000 on terms set forth in the attached purchase agreement. So we will be meeting in closed session to discuss the agreement. So thank you very much. We have 2 bids to consider and put those in possession of Mr. Fritz. Any other discussion on the sale of this property? All right. We'll move on to 7.2, receive monthly finance and budget update. Mr. Moga.
I'll be doing an update on the June expenses and revenues. Our beginning cash started at 8.7 for June. Actual revenues were 5.5. Expenses were 1.4 and the ending cash is 12.7 in the general fund. For the year, it started out at 14.3. Actual revenues were 8.1. Actual expenses are 9.7, and the ending cash is 12.7. The variance is 1.5 this year in the general fund compared to a negative 1.5 compared to a negative 1.3, and overall it's a 1.4 compared to a negative 1.9 last year. And the other thing is, I do want to point out in this fund, actually, Human Services is running a negative at this point. It's a negative 1.7, and this would be after we received our first half of taxes, so the number is still negative even after the taxes have been received for the first half. Looking at that information, it just seems like that fund keeps on staying in the negative. We're not going anywhere in the positive or moving up. So I think at the end of the year that this will be another transfer from general fund because it'll be ending up in a negative dollar amount.
Do you suspect about 1.5 or?
I would, we're 1.7 at halfway, through the year, figure kind of the same thing is going to happen. So I think, yeah, and there are some revenues that do come in January and some in November. There's some CPA and other revenues, but I do think it's going to be in that range of the 1.5. But it depends on what kind of expenses are occurring that are coming in. I did actually look at the expenses actually through July. I know we're talking June here, but July is over. And I think it's human services in July is at 71% of expenses, and they should be at 58%. And that's actually the human services, which is our Fund 430. It's not in this document because I actually ran it for July. This is actually June's. And then also income maintenance is actually running higher, and also at that point they're at 62%, and they should be at July it should be at 58%. Revenues are at 45 in the income maintenance. They are, again, that's lagging a little bit because the quarter would have been June is over, we submit in July, and then the revenues probably will come in that quarter in August. But and then if you look at
So are you saying we don't have our second quarter revenue there yet?
No, that's the quarter. The quarter revenue. It'd be the second quarter. It's really second quarters will come in, but we actually already have fourth quarters. Last year's fourth quarter comes in 2018, and then we have first quarter. So we have now second quarter. So we have really 2 quarters of revenue already in there. But now the second quarter won't come until the third quarter, and third quarter won't come till fourth, and then fourth comes into next year. So we actually have half of the revenue already related to the quarterly reports that we send in.
But you said 45%, didn't you?
Yeah, we're at 45% for revenues in the income maintenance area, and then 62 for expenses. And then if we look at, and this is now as of July. I mean, I'm kind of comparing a June for what I'm giving you here, but I ran some numbers for July. And then if I look at the human services, we have revenues of 59 and expenses of 71 as of July, and we should be at 58%.
And I'm sorry, I've always been frustrated with your government accounting, and that we tend to under budget or miss budget or something. It's just my opinion. And I know you're doing everything the way it's supposed to be done, but to continually, I mean, this isn't a new line. We're always behind, and these numbers. Why are we 70-some% in expenses already? What's triggered that? This should be in red flashing lights or something if we're at that point.
One of the things that would be in the human services area would be the out-of-home placements, and out-of-home placements are running high this year. It also might, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think our mental health, I would have to go and look at each area, but I know that the children, the out-of-home placements is very, very high at this point. I mean, we're way over 50%, and we're at the point of where we should have been at 50%.
But our projections showed that we were going to be high, and that we apparently budgeted for status quo or something that's unacceptable. But anyway, Commissioner Kavesi.
I just wanted to add to this that the Community Services Advisory Committee has recognized this problem, and usually they meet quarterly, but we've been meeting monthly to address specifically the foster care situation, to try to put some additional resources in there, using the resources we already have, trying to just keep those from becoming total out-of-home placements.
I think Mr. Commissioner
Yeah,
Pomeroy.
one thing I'd mention is, I know that while I've been here, that our community services fund balance used to be in the area of $6-7 million.
Used to be very large.
Yeah, and over that time, and you know, we transferred last year,
Last 2 years.
the last 2 years, so that's about $2.5 million, if I recall.
Yeah,
So,
maybe a little bit more than that.
so you add that on to the 6 or 7 million that we used to have a fund balance in that line item, and you look at the deficit now. And I guess what I'd say is, it's, to me, real evidence of the fact that, you know, we're the fiscal and service agent for the state of Minnesota. They mandate the programs, we provide the programs. And so what you're looking at is a course of maybe over 7-8 years of, we've run a deficit in performing those programs of about $10 million. That seem reasonable to conclude?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, in my opinion, what it does is really renders credence to the idea that we really have to work with our legislators to pay more of their fair share for it. You know, many states don't rely on their counties to be the fiscal and service agents. They're usually state offices in those communities throughout the state. Minnesota's one of 8 or 11 counties that do it this way. But what happens is we're the buffer in the middle, and essentially we're the ones that have to come up with the additional dollars because the state doesn't. So, I know they participate a lot, but 10 million over 8 years is, or whatever the number of years is a bit out of hand. I mean, it's a lot of dollars when you relate it to levy.
Yeah, and I know that working with County Administrator Fritz, we've been working, trying to keep the costs down. I mean, what
Right.
things we can do.
Right.
I mean, they put some things into place that, you know, reducing in one area, but then it seems like someplace else it, you know, pops up that we haven't expected.
The last thing I'd say on that is that while we acknowledge that we need to do work with the legislature, it's really apparent to me as well that as we look at your overall cash flow and fund balance, we're still at $18 million. And so, and I'm not exactly sure how low it went the previous month. Was it about 7?
In the general fund?
Yeah, well, overall.
Ending, the whole ending.
I would have to go and look
Yeah.
to see
But
what.
I guess what I'm getting at is that in spite of that, we still have what, in my opinion, and I'm sure others will disagree with me, I think it's still a very healthy fund balance. But again, that's neither here nor there with respect to community services, because that's an issue with us in the state.
Mr. Fritz.
Yeah, there's a couple things to consider in the numbers for community services. One, we had a fairly significant payment or a bill from the state that fell in 2017, but got paid in 2018. So that will skew the numbers a little bit. And then also the out-of-home placements, even though they were rising, I think we under budgeted that, assuming that there would be, you know, at some point it's got to level off. And actually, at this point, I think we're down, and I could be wrong, but I think we're down to about 80 some kids when we were up at a peak of 90 some. So it may have hopefully peaked for a while. And that was, we had hoped that would occur earlier. And it didn't, so that kind of factors into it. And as far as the fund balance goes, yeah, you'll see when we talk about the budget in the coming weeks, you know, the fund balance and where we're at and kind of how it goes into play. And as Commissioner Pomeroy indicated, it's I think for the non-restricted or the unrestricted funds, I think it's in the $12 million range, and it dips down during the time when we have the least amount of taxes, but it's still, you know, in a comfortable operating zone, I guess is the best way to put it at this point. So obviously decisions made down the road could affect that. But so I just want to comment on that.
Sure. Mr. Jacob?
And I'd agree with everything, the points you've made, Commissioner Pomeroy. Where our operating balances are still within range now, it wasn't very long ago that there was another 10 million there. So we have drawn down our any excesses that we've had and brought them into state guidelines of where we should be with how many months in advance we can operate if we didn't have income. So it is frustrating, exactly what you said about the state programs being mandated and not being paid for. And I think we've certainly made that point with our state representatives and legislators. Either pay their fair share or take the programs back, or however they want to resolve the problem. We've been pushing on them, and they need to be responsible.
Because we're not the only county. Every county is facing it. And you look at any county's community service, human service, whatever you want to call it, everybody's spending a lot of money.
Yeah, and the last thing I'd say is we provide a lot of great programs and services that people really need in the human services area, without question. I think the issue, though, has come to the fore is that our reimbursements haven't kept up with the cost. And that's really what the issue is that I think you're probably notified every once in a while that your reimbursement rate for this or that service is probably being cut some. Do you experience that a lot, Heather?
You'll see that in the budget this year, that our federal and state revenues are flat and less than, in some cases, less than in 2008 and 2009.
Mm-hmm. So. I guess my fear is that we're probably going the same direction we went with post-secondary education in the state. You know, it used to be 2/3 state, 1/3 student, and now it's 2/3 student, 1/3 state, where it's just completely reversed. And to me, that's a troubling trend in human services, that the reimbursement rates are going to continue to go down. And if we were one of those states that didn't administer for the state, it wouldn't be a problem. Right. But we are, so.
That'd be the single biggest factor driving our levy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cressy.
Yeah, I agree. This is an ongoing situation, and we have made the case to our legislators that we need to continue that. They recognize it, but they haven't seen any possible solutions yet. By coincidence, I sat in the lobby yesterday of the Human Services Building, County Office Building, and in a little over an hour, there were probably 20 different families that came to the counter. The playroom was being used, the computers on the side were being used, Veterans Affairs was being used. So, I mean, people are coming, and we do thankfully have some good services for people. So I appreciate that our staff is working very hard to meet the needs under rather difficult situations.
Attorney Sonneman.
I just wanted to note the items that you approved this morning, item 6.4, 6.5, and 6.7 are all about prevention and doing that early intervention, which we need to continue to do because it does help reduce the numbers that we see both in juvenile court and child protection. And it's important to continue to do that. So I think it needs to be recognized that there's the preventative aspect as well. And I think that grant that, I was looking at yesterday, it's like $500,000, isn't it, to the community services. So, and that's a regional grant. So it's important to remember that prevention does work, it does help. And when we take our eyes off that, then we get more problems in the more long term. So, but we are seeing more child protection cases in our office. But those are things that have to be done. I mean, we have to provide those services to help those families.
Commissioner Palmer.
I completely agree with everything that you said, and I really think we should be very thankful that we have the staff that we do at Community Services. And I want the staff over there to understand that this is not a reflection on the kind of work that's coming out of Community Services, because your work is excellent. It's more simply the idea that it's about our arrangements with the state and county arrangements throughout the state. And so there's nothing but goodwill for your department.
Jacob.
Yeah, some of the frustrations I've heard from constituents is everyone agrees that we need to do what we can for prevention to help solve the bigger problem of what happens if you don't prevent it. But Winona County has been dedicated to prevention, and yet the needs in community services continue to rise rather than go down. So the constituents want to see results from the preventative work, and it's not being reflected in our budget. It's like a double-edged sword. They're having to pay for the prevention, and they're having to pay for as the problem's getting worse.
And I think it's a really complex issue. It includes poverty, lack of housing, transportation. I mean, there's so many other issues that, and then, well, our opioid crisis and the drugs and mental health that combine. So it's hard to say that it's that kind of more simple look at it to say, okay, we've got this prevention, then it should be showing some results. I look at it that by doing that prevention, we're minimizing the numbers, and we can't control some of or we can try to, but we can't control some of the factors. And it really is a much larger issue of well, it's national and state too, but so, and I'm an old economist, so I look at those kind of things from a policy level, and you just have to need to look at it more on a complex level, so.
Commissioner Jacob.
And I maybe want to reiterate what Jim said about our county staff does an excellent job, and it's got to be frustrating for them to try to implement these programs, and us not being able to give you all the funding you need down there. But we work for not just community services; we work for the constituents paying for the programs too. So it's a tough balance.
And what Commissioner Jacob said is that the balance is that when we have to continue, as county commissioners, have to continually raise our local levy to cover these programs, which we're not arguing that they're good programs and we want to do prevention, but we're also putting a strain on our neighbors as far as raising property taxes. And again, in my own opinion, this is not related to property ownership. It is a state and federal issue, and there are bigger pots and different pots. Yes, it's taxpayer money, but there's different pots and bigger pots that these programs, draw from. And so to continually ask the local property taxpayer to pay for all these mandated federal and state programs is it's putting a stress and strain on the local property taxpayer when they open their and their livelihood and their expendable income and what they're supporting. I mean, there is support for these kinds of programs, but at what level do we all continually to pay for them? It's getting harder and harder. It is a balancing act, and it is getting harder and harder to ask the property tax to cover these kinds of programs. Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah. And not only getting harder and harder, but if you look at where we were as a county 10 years ago, how many employees we had, how we've downsized the county, we're downsizing the physical size. We've done all that to be able to continue to essentially pay for these community services programs. And we're out of areas that we can squeeze, and that we can only downsize the county so far to pay for government programs, or state programs, which is how they've been paid for in the last 10 years.
Hey, got any other cheery news for us, Pat?
I'll finish up with the financial update. I also wanted to point out in the highway fund, there's $7 million in that fund at this point, but that fund will, a lot of the expenses are going to actually occur probably in the month of September, October, when those contracts start finalizing. I'll go to the summary cash flow. We started at 19.6 million. Actual revenues were 19.5. Actual expenses were 21 million. Ending cash is 18.1. Variance is also negative 1.5 compared to the negative 1.9. Looking at the summary budget, expenses at this point, this is for June, so we should be at 50%. And we had a healthy discussion related on this. The only one that is actually over the 50% at this point is the human services expenses. Anybody have any questions on excuse me, I forgot to ask questions on the summary document. Any questions on the last two documents? If not, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks.
Moving on, 7.3, approve, discuss, or deny Planning Commission request for a 60-day extension for review of the interim use permit as zoning ordinance amendment to Chapter 5.5.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, at the July 19th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission members asked for an extension for their review of the interim use permit. Over the last couple of months, between comparing what other counties have adopted and reviewing Minnesota Statute 394.303 interim use, it became obvious that the time spent was valuable in the preparation of a sample ordinance for interim use that was presented at the July 19th meeting. So that was a public meeting that was held. At that time, they requested an extension of 60 days to further study the interim use issues. No specific recommendations were made to staff to present or change anything in particular about the draft ordinance at that time. If the county board votes to grant that extension, your body needs to make written conclusions and findings about the decision, including stating the duration of the extension. If you turn down this request for an extension, then this Thursday would be the final voted up or down of the interim use permit. Otherwise, that meeting would likely be canceled and the issue would come up in the September Planning Commission meeting.
Commissioner Jacob?
I sit on the Planning Commission, however, I was not, that was the first one I've missed. Commissioner Ward sat in on that meeting. Yep. I don't see, if there was an applicant who had a conditional use permit pending and we extended the 60 days, I would be concerned with that. But this is just internal with what we do with our regulations. I have no problem giving them another 60 days to review the issue. So I'd support their request here.
And I did attend, Steve was out of town, I did attend, and I do apologize, I wasn't totally up to speed on what had happened prior to that meeting. Got a lot of documents within a matter of a short time. But you're absolutely right, there is no urgency because there were no applications. It's just something that staff had been asked to review and look at. And the public hearing, only one person was there and spoke and did speak against it. They had some concerns, and I think those concerns were things that the committee wanted to resolve. And you can see by the vote that it was 5-2 to ask for the extension, to give it some more thought, get some more clarity on how the process would change and be different than what we currently use. So was that a motion, Commissioner Jacobs?
I'll make that a motion to grant the extension.
I'll second it. Commissioner Kavesi?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was in the audience during that meeting, and there was extensive discussion, and there has been, and I appreciate that the Planning Commission is taking due diligence on this. I was concerned also that there was only one person at the public hearing, and I know we have a public hearing when it comes before us, but I think for some reason, the public has not responded to this necessarily, and I think if we give them a little more time and if we give the Planning Commission a little more time and maybe a little more press on some of the issues or whatever, I think we'll get some additional responses from the public, and I think that would be good.
So, so we have a motion, but Ms. Qualley, you said we need to give you some specifics. Why?
The Chapter 5.4.22 of the Winona County zoning ordinance requires that findings and a conclusion for the decision to grant the extension be made.
Okay, so in the motion, Commissioner Jacobs said there are no applicants, so that would be a reason not to deny it, right? We're not pressed to make a decision.
Simply in the interest of supporting the planning commission's wishes to have more time on the issue.
And I guess I would add what Commissioner Kavesi mentioned, the idea of giving due diligence, that it's just, and that goes to more time.
Right.
That as a public body, that to have that time to fully consider the issues. And so
I
that
think another finding could be the fact that there so far has only been one response from the public.
My understanding, Commissioners, is that the public hearing is closed. So if there's additional input, it's not a second public hearing that would be taking place in September. It might be wordsmithing, or it might be just voting it down or up to send it along to all of you.
Right, but the county board can have and will probably have a public hearing.
So you would like an actually stated finding, I would imagine?
Yes. Well, these findings that you've been listing that are being noted by our attorneys, I think.
Cover us?
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right.
From a staff standpoint, anyway.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, carried. Now, you will let the planning commission members know there is no meeting then on Thursday.
Yes, we'll do that at the conclusion of this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I know that was a concern. All right, committee reports, communications. Commissioner Kavesi.
I just had a couple things to announce. There was a meeting yesterday to follow up some of the discussion from the recent Project Find Community Survey. And along with that, there's a couple opportunities for the public to become involved. On September 19th at the Winona Historical Society from 2 o'clock to 3:30, Mark Peterson, the mayor of Minnesota and also the History Center director, is going to have a public discussion on the impact of refugees and immigrants in our community and the history of those issues and just the contributions made by those groups. So that will be on September 19th. There also is an ongoing Project Find initiative to bring people together for talking and getting to know each other called Welcome Table. The next Welcome Table event is a dinner meal starting at 5:30 at Central Lutheran Church, and that's next Monday, the 20th. And these occur monthly, swapping between lunch and dinner. And also next Monday on August the 20th, there is, sponsored by the Farm Bureau, a candidate forum, and that will be held at the City Hall in Altura. All of the candidates for election and re-election are included in that, all of the county board candidates. I'm not sure who else has been invited. And the last thing, Goodview Days in our joining city of Goodview are this weekend, so all the festivities will be happening this weekend. Car show, different events. So check the newspaper for the schedule, or it's online. And Sunday afternoon is a parade, so hopefully we'll have mild weather. That would be nice in the parade, but who knows. So it'll be fun anyway. So those are all happening shortly, soon.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, I've got two events. One here today. We've got the 80th anniversary of Soil and Water. They're having a tour bus leave today from Farmers Park. That's at 1 o'clock. Then there'll be a program at 5 o'clock and dinner at 6 o'clock out there to celebrate their 80th anniversary functioning in Winona County here. And then St. Charles Gladiolus Parade is on the 26th this year. So, and the days leading up to that, there's events going on up in St. Charles as well. So, that's all I have.
All right. A couple things. Stop by the 4-H Extension Office. Winona County will be sending 80-plus kids to the Minnesota Great Gathering, the Minnesota State Fair, with livestock and non-livestock exhibits. So that's pretty awesome. We have a very good, strong representation at the State Fair for the 4-Hers. It's election day. It's primary election day. Everybody, I see Commissioner Kavessi's got her vote. The polls are open till 8 o'clock. And be sure and thank your poll workers. It's a long day. They're very dedicated group of people. At my poll, it's my neighbors, so it's a good time to catch up with the neighborhood. But do thank the poll workers. It's a big job that they undertake, and it's a long day for them. So say thank you to them. Other than that, any other business to come before the county board? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
Motion made by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Kavessi to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.